Peace and love, you guys. What's going on? Got it's Lanexa here, and we are back in our Is You Gonna Build or Is You Gonna Bullshit series of the Four Agreements Companion Book by Don Miguel Ruiz. We last left off on page 23. First of all, I want to thank y'all for not being on me too heavy about last week, because y'all know my birthday weekend or whatever. And when I was at the beach, I really couldn't get good sound because the oceans and the wind was not coinciding with my voice. So, yeah. When we last left off, we had some series of questions that we were asking ourselves to get a little bit deeper into where our beliefs are rooted from and also what our beliefs are. So we are going to pick back up in the domestication section on page 23, and we are at the bottom where it says the Book of Law. Whatever is in the Book of Law is our truth. We base all of our judgments according to the Book of Law, even if these judgments go against our own inner nature. One of the biggest mystery schools in the world, Christianity, tells us the story about Adam and Eve who lived in paradise, parasite-free. They perceived everything with their awareness, and they had a beautiful dream, but they didn't have knowledge. In the middle of the garden was the tree of knowledge, and God warned Adam and Eve not to eat fruit from this tree. Do you remember who lives in that tree? The evil serpent lives there. Well, I like to change the name of the serpent, the devil, to the parasite. The parasite lives in the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and it's just like that little worm you sometimes see inside of an apple. If you eat the apple, you eat the parasite. The serpent or evil goes into your mind through knowledge contaminated by the parasite. Humans accumulate a lot of knowledge, and 95% of that knowledge is not true. Instead of using knowledge as a tool for communication, we become puppets of knowledge. We give life to that knowledge, and that knowledge begins to create a lot of drama and suffering. It isn't based on truth, because it isn't based on truth. 600 or 700 years ago, everybody knew that the earth was flat. That didn't mean it was true, but they knew and they believed, and for them, the earth was flat. When they unlearned that knowledge, their perception changed, the concept changed, and now we know that the earth is round. This kind of concept is harmless, really, but other concepts are deadly, especially the concepts that try to rule other people's lives. As children, we never chose what to believe or not to believe. We didn't choose our religion or moral values or any concept at all. But we agreed with these beliefs, and once we agreed, it was stored in our memory. The outside dream hooked our attention and put knowledge inside us via other humans, via our parents, teachers, church, and society. This knowledge sets us up to be slaves of the dream of the planet. Knowledge itself isn't good or bad or right or wrong. Knowledge is just a program. It is nothing but concepts. But the parasite that goes with knowledge is evil. It is alive. The parasite grows in your mind and takes control of the mind. Once that parasite takes control of your mind, the real you is dead. You are not alive. There is something else that is living your life. It is not true because the real you is not evil. The real you is not self-destructive. We eat knowledge, ingest the parasite, and get sick from what we eat. This is what happened to all of us. When we understand that evil is nothing but a disease of the human mind, we understand why human societies are the way they are, why there is all the injustice, violence, and war. We have ingested parasites in the form of beliefs, in the form of concepts, and in the form of distorted images. All of the personal drama that we experience, all the emotions that burn us up, that lead us into self-destruction, into addictions, into lies, into dogmas, and into fanaticism, are the results of the beliefs of the result of a program. If we can see that we get sick by eating knowledge, then using logic, how can we heal ourselves? What happens when we eat food that is contaminated and we don't feel well? If we throw up and get rid of the poison, we're going to feel better. Well, if we get rid of the knowledge that is harming us, guess what goes out with that knowledge? Guess who goes out with that knowledge? Once we take the parasite out of the mind will heal and will function much better. The function of Adam and Eve tells us what happened, and all the traditions around the world in one way or another, they have come to the same conclusion. The whole dream of the planet is not real. It is not true. When you awake from that dream and are aware of what is going on in people's minds, you see parasites everywhere and everyone. You see all the emotional poison coming out through those parasites. By being aware, you see that wherever you go, people react the same way that you react. They have the same fears, the same jealousy, the same anger, and the same sorrows. You can see yourself in each one of them. They mirror your projections, but we don't have to judge it as good or bad or right or wrong. It's just the way that it is. To be aware of what happened with our mind and with the whole humanity is what the Toltec called the mastery of awareness. Awareness means to open your eyes to see the truth and no longer to be blind. We are born with awareness, but we accumulate knowledge and we practice not being aware. We learn to deny what we perceive. We are born without knowledge, of course, but we accumulate knowledge when we are domesticated. That knowledge is like a wall of fog that doesn't allow us to perceive what really is. It keeps us from having awareness. The challenge is to maintain our awareness in the midst of that fog. More than that, to shift the knowledge, lift the fog, and recover our awareness. If we can practice being aware all the time, just awareness will change our whole reality. When we master awareness, we almost master the dream. There's a movie called The Crucible that portrays how the evil serpent enters minds through knowledge. In the movie, a real man of knowledge came to town carrying several large books. He had spent all his life learning about witchcraft and was full of that knowledge. The church knew there were witches among them, and they were determined to clean up the town. They judged the whole town based on those books, and many people were killed. One little girl had the power to condemn whoever she wanted to condemn by lying. If she said, "I see the devil in that person," they went to trial, were judged, and found guilty, and they were killed. The whole town was possessed by fear. But where was the evil? Was it in those people that were killed? No. The evil was in those books of knowledge. It was in that man who was determined to apply the law in the name of that knowledge. Well, each of us has that same kind of book in our head. We have our own book of knowledge, our own book of law, and we use that book to judge ourselves, to find ourselves guilty, and to punish ourselves. Many times we even deny ourselves the right to be alive. Again, it is important to understand that our mind is infested with a lot of little parasites or concepts that other people put in our mind. Those parasites create one big parasite, and they stay in our mind by agreement. The belief that you are not good enough is one of those little parasites in your mind. It is evil because it is destroying you. It causes suffering because it limits your life. It limits your creativity and your happiness. The belief that nobody likes you, the belief that you're not worthy of love or happiness, and the belief that you are always right. These beliefs are not true. They lead you into self-destruction. By always being right, for example, you have to make someone else wrong. By making someone else wrong, you create an enemy, and then you're hurting yourself because sooner or later, that enemy will go against you. All these concepts are alive and they work together, but they need your mind, they need your dream, they need your emotions to be alive. They only live because you believe them. These parasites are what the old religions called gods or demons. They have many names, but they are truly alive, and they are in control of the human mind. Every concept, every belief in your mind has its own personality that wants to express itself. You have millions of voices in your head, a whole society inside your mind, and just like a democracy, what the majority wants is the way you live your life. The inner society is governed by the rules that dictate your life, and the inner society is governed by rules that dictate the way your life should be, the way each part of you has to behave. The whole dream of your life is based on the rules in your book of law, and whatever happens in your life will be interpreted according to the book of law. And there are two other parts that live in your mind. One is the judge and one is the victim. The judge is doing its job perfectly. It's going to judge. It uses the book of law to judge everything. Every action and reaction lives under the tyranny of the judge. The part of you that receives the judgment or sometimes the reward is the victim. Whether the victim receives a reward or a punishment will depend on whether or not you follow the book of law. The judge and the victim have no doubt that the book of law is the supreme truth and nothing but the truth. They rule the dream of the book of law without any doubt, which means they rule with faith. That is how you live your life. But the one big question is this: is there justice in that system? In the Four Agreements, we have already found that there is no justice in that system. All of the suffering of humanity is in that book of law. that book of knowledge because it isn't based on truth. Again, more than 90% of that knowledge is not true. But for the judge and the victim, it is absolutely true. So practice ideas for mastering awareness, the book of law. One by one, all these agreements go into the book of law, and these agreements rule our dream. Are you aware of the agreements that govern your life? What does your book of law say about how you should treat yourself? What does it say about how you should relate with other people, with other forms of life, with God? Does your book of law give you the freedom to be who you really are? Does it give you the right to be happy, the right to express your creativity, the right to be generously rewarded for the gifts and talents you share with others? Keep a separate journal for recording all the agreements you have made in your life. Label this journal the book of law. Make a commitment to record every law, every rule, every agreement, or belief that you became aware of for at least one full year. Keep your book of law within easy reach so you don't forget. Below are some suggestions for chapter headings and subtopics for the book of law. This is your book of law, so feel free to make up your own headings to use your own words and descriptions that you personally relate to. I gotta find me a book of law. I don't think I did that. All right, y'all, this is gonna be my book of law. We're gonna make that my book of law. All right. Personal agreements, your body and yourself, appearance and personal. Personal appearance is one, health and diet, masculinity and femininity. Another one could be social agreements, family and friends, love and sex, marriage and family, friendship and social interactions. Another chapter header could be spiritual agreements, life and God, religion and spirituality, death and losses, nature, animals, and all forms of life. Financial agreements could be work and career, your unique skills and talents, money and financial matters, success and failure. After you have entered the headings for your book of law, consider what you were programmed to believe about each of these areas of your life. What did you learn about yourself, about others, about work, about life? One way to get started is to ask good or bad or right or wrong questions for each topic within the chapter. For example, what is good or bad or what is right or wrong about my personality, my personal appearance, being a woman or being a man, being married, having children, having money, being successful, being religious or spiritual, my job and my profession. Consider how you were domesticated as a very young child. How did other people hook your attention? How were you rewarded? How were you punished? What did you do to hook the attention of other people? What did you do to avoid being punished? What did you do to get the reward? List 4 of the most important values that you learned from parents, siblings, and other families, school or church, babysitters or other influential adults, friends and acquaintances, society at large. Do you agree with these values? As a child, were you punished if you didn't honor these values? As an adult, do you punish yourself for failing to honor them? List some of the self-abusive agreements you have made with yourself. List some of the self-nurturing, self-loving agreements you have made with yourself. As you become aware of any other agreement you have made, record them in your book of law. The inner judge uses what is in our book of law to judge everything we do and don't do, everything we think and don't think, everything we feel and don't feel. Everything lives under the tyranny of this judge. Are you aware of the judge inside your mind, the voice of knowledge that judges everything and everyone? Make a list of every person in your life, including yourself. Consider how each person conducts his or her life in each category in your book of law. Briefly describe your judgment about each person. How do you feel about the way each person lives his or her life, including you? What do you admire about this person? What do you admire about yourself and everybody else on this list? What do you like and dislike and even despair? Remember, we make the assumption that other people judge us the way we judge ourselves, but this isn't true. Other people judge us according to their own book of law. They live in a completely different dream. And we judge other people the way we judge ourselves because all of our judgments come from the supreme truth in our book of law. How do you judge yourself? Am I a bad person because? I should be ashamed of myself because? I am guilty of? I am so stupid whenever I... How do you judge others? This person is bad because... This person should be ashamed of herself because... this person is guilty of. I think that it's really stupid when someone... Then you could list 4 mistakes you've made in your life. How do you punish yourself? How do you abuse yourself? How many times have you paid for each mistake? Do you abuse your physical body? Did y'all know that humans are the only ones that abuse themselves over and over for the same mistake? I'm almost sure that was in the 4 Agreements original book. But yeah, dogs and animals and all them, they live their problem and they get it over one time. They don't come back 3 weeks later like, do you remember you killed that damn lion? Shame on you. Like, they let it go. Only us. We the only ones hold on to that. Keep going. List 4 mistakes other people have made that you cannot forgive. How do you punish others? How do you abuse others? How many times have you made each person pay for his or her mistake? Do you abuse other people physically? List 4 things that you have accomplished that made you proud of yourself. How did you reward yourself? List 4 things others have accomplished that made you proud of them. How did you reward them? Now that you're more aware of your judge, describe in detail what your judge is like and how it uses the book of law to rule your life. Is your judge ever fair and forgiving, or is it always harsh and unforgiving? Consider your judge a more personal or descriptive name so you can easily identify whose voice is talking inside of your head. Your answer to the judge. The next time the voice of the judge is judging you or anyone else, you now have 4 answers to give the judge. You can decide which answer is most appropriate for the situation. Get a bright piece of paper and a black marking pen and create a note to remind yourself of these answers. Then post a note wherever you will see it every day. These are your answers. Big deal. Who cares? So what? Why not? If none of these answers seem to satisfy your judge, then remember, it doesn't matter. The victim. The victim carries the blame and the guilt and the shame. It is the part of us that says, poor me, I'm not good enough, I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not worthy of love. Are you aware of the victim inside your mind that receives the judgment, carries the blame, the guilt, and the shame? The victim is the part of you that feels helpless and hopeless and powerless. What makes you feel ashamed of yourself? What makes you feel guilty? What makes you feel helpless or victimized? When do you feel unworthy of love? When do you feel regret or sadness? When do you feel betrayed? Complete the following sentences. I am to blame for being. I don't deserve to have. I can't do what I really want to do because I am powerless when it comes to, poor me, I'm not good enough to. Poor me, I'm not intelligent enough to. Poor me, I'm never going to be. Poor me, I'm never going to have. I am unworthy of love because I am unworthy of self-love because I am unworthy of self-respect because I am unworthy of being too happy because I am unworthy of having financial abundance because. Look at your answers to these statements above and ask your heart, not your parasite, whether each statement is true or false. Here's your hint to let you know when you are telling yourself a lie. Any belief that generates fear or feelings of unworthiness is false. It's a lie. The parasite thrives on emotions that come from fear, suffering, and drama. Our authentic self would never abuse us. It comes from love. Describe in detail what your victim is like. When does it believe the judge? Why does it believe the judge? Consider yourself giving your victim a personal name so you can identify that voice in your head. On a scale of 1 through 10, with number 1 being a life that is governed by the parasite, the judge, the victim, and the book of law, and number 10 being a life completely free of parasite, where do you presently live your life? On a parasite scale, I live my life at a number. Spend the next 15 minutes considering what it would be like to live your life without the judge and the victim. Imagine if you could take back your power you gave to the judge years ago and rule your life based on principles of love, joy, and freedom. Imagine if your victim was transformed from poor me to empowered person who refuses to be abused 1 minute longer. Imagine what your life would be like if your personal code of conduct was based on the 4 agreements. When you try to imagine these possibilities, do you find yourself meeting resistance? Complete the following sentences. I cannot live my life without the judge because. I cannot live my life without the victim because. I cannot live my life the way I really want to because. I cannot live my life by the 4 agreements because. What kind of excuses does your parasite give you? Write these down so you can respond to them with truth instead of lies. As you read your answers to each of the above sentences, counter each excuse with the reason why it would be possible for you to do it. Come up with at least one answer to each statement that completely refutes the excuse. As you counter each excuse, imagine yourself moving up the scale towards a life that is parasite-free. Keep answering your excuses and continue to imagine yourself moving up the scale until you reach the number 10. At this point, you no longer have any doubt that you can accomplish what you want. You have recovered your faith from the belief system, and your faith is 100%. Here is an example. I cannot live my life without the judge because I would be completely irresponsible and out of control. I would do bad things, or I would be lazy and never get anything done. Your answers to above statements might be, I would never be irresponsible or out of control. I am a responsible person. If I praise myself more and judge myself less, I would be happier and more capable of assuming responsibility. I would never do anything bad. In fact, if the judge wasn't always judging me, I would do greater things than I do now. If I accepted myself without judgment, I would accept others without judgment. Number 3, I am not a lazy person. Perhaps I would take it easy for a while, but then I would enjoy doing what I need to do and would accomplish even more without the judge always criticizing me. Complete your responses to each limiting belief. Then take another look at the parasite scale and ask yourself where your life resides. Were you able to move your position a step closer to number 10? If not, why not? What will it take for you to reclaim your personal freedom? This practice idea can be used for almost any area of your life in which you find yourself challenged. Start by making a statement about something you want but fear but you will not get. Consider all the reasons why you cannot have what you want. Then come up with a statement that completely negates each of these excuses. Imagine each excuse as a physical object that is standing in the way of your goal. Imagine yourself moving up the scale as you remove each obstacle from your path. Keep working with both lists until you reach the point where your faith is completely invested in your desire instead of your doubt. At this point, you will be at number 10. The agreements that come from fear require us to expend a lot of energy, but the agreements that come from love help us to conserve energy and gain extra energy. You should now be aware of some of the judgments, beliefs, and agreements in your book of law. The next step is to challenge the agreements in your book of law. Go through your book of law and ask yourself these questions. Which agreements lift me up and give me joy? Which of these agreements bring me down? Which of these agreements are based on truth? Which of these are lies? Identify each limiting fear-based agreement and write a new agreement based on truth and self-love to replace it. Begin each week with one agreement that seems easiest to break. Focus your attention on the agreement until you can break that agreement and adopt a new one in its place. Practice your new agreement until it becomes a habit. As you break each agreement, your enthusiasm and self-respect will continue to grow until you recover enough power to break all agreements that limit your freedom and happiness. All right, you guys, that was the end of that. And next Sunday, we will be moving into chapter 2, The Power of Word, which starts on 47. That was really great. That was 23 to pretty much 45 or so. So yeah, you guys definitely take a second, go back and pause this book where y'all see fit and think about those questions. Really think about where you are and the things that you're telling yourself, and really think like, sometimes we really be telling ourselves some real sick stuff and believing it too. Like, we could truly do so much more if we didn't have that judge and that victim always in our ears. So as y'all take time to reflect, take yourselves out your body and just kind of look at yourselves. Look at the judge, look at the victim, and see how they really play their parts in your life. And yeah, write it down. I'm about to get my book of law popping. And yeah, so I will see you all soon. Have a great week. Peace.